May, and I'm here with Brandon Fairweather from what do I call you, Biogen, Discam, which cap are we wearing
Both.
today? No, neither cap today.
Both.
Great to have you, dude. It's been a long time coming. We've spoken about this for so long.
Mm.
It's probably going to snow outside because we're finally getting a drought.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thanks for the time.
Listen, the weather feels like it's going to snow, so it's only a pleasure, and thanks for doing it. It's nice to be able to chat.
So I think let's start off. You've obviously here title at Biogen Discam. What is the title?
So my main role, there's two. The one is Biogen brand manager. I've been involved in the Biogen brand for nearly 17 years now. The brand has been going 20 years. I've been with it for 17 of those, and probably an extra one if you consider when it launched, I was still a promoter in Discam. So we saw this new red shiny brand, and it was like having a new toy in the aisles of Discam, and it was an exciting new range. I've been very privileged to be a part of what was designed to be a private label exclusive brand to Discam that we feel is now grown to have national appeal, which is really exciting. And just honestly sounds cheesy to say it, but feel privileged to be a part of that process of watching this baby grow into the monster, if you will, that it is. A really nice monster, though, with deep values and really just cool projects, and really just an enabler for a lot of people, including myself. And a big part of that has been obviously working with our exclusive retailer, Discam. So for many years, I've played a role in managing some of the expos and events, and you'll see me around at all the expos and the trade shows and some of the sponsorship properties and that sort of thing. And I think over time it evolved into a broader role that needed a name. So the role there is health category marketing manager, where we're involved in broader than just private label brand, but food, sports, and multivitamins as well. So those categories, which is really an exciting space and something that's really nice to be a part of, in an industry that by nature is designed to help people improve their health and wellness. So that's really cool.
I think there's obviously a big focus on the sport and the health side of things. And Discam, that's their core values is the health side of stuff.
Yeah.
You had events like pretty much every weekend. You don't go to an event without seeing a Biogen, a Discam banner, something like that, or product, whatever it may be. From a sporting side of things, what do you take part in? What have you been involved in? What do you do?
Myself personally, quite a few things. I mean, I always was an active person younger and growing up, but wasn't your typical athlete. I mean, I was born with a congenital heart defect, so I had an issue with my aortic valve, which I was told from a young age would need to be replaced through corrective heart surgery. These days, they have a much more sort of sophisticated and simpler version of doing that, where they kind of go through your groin or your sort of lower abdomen, and I went through the full sort of open heart surgery, which they often are more comfortable doing at a younger age. So at the age of 28, I'm now 42, had open heart surgery, and it was really a life-changing event, and was a catalyst to a lot of things that have happened in my life since then. Part of that process was discovering running. I mean, I never enjoyed running growing up. I played football, I played cricket, played a lot more team sports. Not to say I was limited by the defect, but things like cross country and that I would battle with growing up. So I suppose I had an extra reason to hate running. I think when everyone starts running, if I can say it on a chat like this, no one loves it when they start. They love it when they get used to it, and they love the feeling of when you finished. And the doctors at that time said that, running would be a good sport to, when I asked them what activity can I do, how much, to what sort of strain level and that sort of thing, they said, listen, maybe look at running because it's quite a consistent, and you can also start with a walk, run a bit. When you're tired, you walk some more. So in the rehabilitation, which was far more extensive than exercise, they suggested running to kind of be that mode of, okay, then once you get the fitness and health back to full strength, you can then look at, okay, do you want to do gym? Do you want to play other team sports and that sort of thing? So historically, it was really just cricket and soccer. I mean, as a younger kid, I did athletics, high jump, long jump. I was always trying my best. I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't exactly the Victor Ladorum at events, but also wasn't the worst. And I would get the odd placing here and there. So as a family, I've got three brothers. We've always been active, as a group, boys being boys, always playing garden cricket or playing soccer in the cold. There was always something to do. So running became something that I just did because it was methodical and was recommended, to me actually loving it. And when Discam invested in the parkrun relationship many years ago, which a lot of people know about, part of the deal then was Bruce and Jill Ford. I said, listen, the only way you can really understand, because when parkrun was new, no one really understood, is this an event? How isn't you pay for it? No, it's free. But how do you run it then? Are there sponsors? No, you just rock up and it's time and it's incredible. And obviously what parkrun has done for South Africa, and just their health in general has been incredible. With over, I don't know what the numbers are now, but I know it's last year November they reached their millionth registered runner, so it must be around 1.2 million, I would guess now. Um, and it's just incredible what that has produced in South Africa. But I learned to really enjoy running. I enjoyed the Saturday morning, the routine of, okay, now I've got a reason to go and do that. And I literally started, especially on the back of the heart surgery, from a walk to a bit of a canter to sometimes when the wife and kids wouldn't come with me, I'd be like, okay, well, let me see how much of this I can run. So my journey is not atypical, in terms of industry or what you'd expect. But I'm proud of that, and it's not something, I'm not the guy who's going to push out the absolute maximum from himself. But I think that has started me on a journey of really understanding what my body is capable of, after all that. And as we've spoken about before, there's been a lot of other complications that have come as a result of, not as a result of the heart surgery, because that was a real blessing. And honestly, people think like, why would you say it in this way? But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It changed my life, changed the way I viewed things, gave me a different perspective. And it sounds melodramatic, but when you're faced with near-death experiences, you view the world in a very different way. It goes from ambition and success and money and fame and all the things people chase in this world materialistically to, wow, if I can just be here another day, what a gift that is. And everyone always says to you, like, carpe diem, and seize the day and live today as if tomorrow is your last. And, when you physically have that experience, you really appreciate what that means. And yeah, I think on top of the heart surgery, we had the experience of I was diagnosed with cancer in my lower intestine 2 years ago in 2023. So that was a successful fight as well. And I don't really know.
I was going to take you back. So you're
Yeah,
diagnosed. So you've had the heart surgery. That's gone
yeah,
well. You've started getting fit. You've started running,
yeah, yeah.
getting the family fit. Then you're talking about seize the day, and it's a sad fact that that's the type of thing that we've got to go through to suddenly realize the value of life.
Yeah.
But now you've had all that heart surgery. You've got fit. You're in the health industry, and then you get the news. You get the diagnosis. Mr. Fairweather, you got cancer.
Yeah.
What's the immediate feeling?
Well, listen, again, I mean, it's a long story. That's why it's like, how much time do we have, But the first,
Not
the
as
first
long as
two,
it takes me to run comrades.
well, exactly. Yeah, listen, yeah. Listen, hopefully it's not that long, but we'll see. But yeah, I think that the other two things that happened was the other complications I had was, so when you have the heart surgery, you get put onto a blood thinner. So I'm on warfarin to this day, and I don't demonize that. Like, it's enabled me to be here. So there are probably better drugs out there, but they're more expensive. And I think in terms of what I've been able to manage, that's the one I've stuck with. But with that, there's come the challenge or the requirement to monitor your blood thickness all the time. So in the beginning, it's very sensitive, and there's a couple of things that can change that. So getting used to warfarin was like, be careful what you eat, these sort of things. Like, I mean, I don't drink alcohol really much, so like that's not a factor for me. But those are things that can impact the thickness of your blood. So you have to monitor that and go for checks, and you check your blood every 2-3 months. In the beginning, it was almost every week, as they were understanding where that was at. So you look at your INR, which measures your blood thickness. But with that, I had other issues in the past, even before the cancer diagnosis, where at times the blood was too thick. And at one stage, I actually had a TIA, which was a form of a stroke. Couldn't speak. I was on a phone call, just lost my words, had to get rushed to hospital, didn't know what was going on. And how that had transpired was I'd been overseas for 6 weeks, and something happens when you travel. I'm not saying it was the only reason. It was also negligence on my part, to be honest, like getting too comfortable with, well, every time I went, it was at a reasonably good level. It might have been a bit too thick, but too thin, but there was nothing ever really to worry about. And I think just leaving it for a period of 3 or 4 months, which sounds stupid now if you think back, but at the time, it wasn't a conscious decision not to get it checked. It was just that every time I went, it was, oh yeah, I must go to the hospital. And it's always like en route to work, or it's an inconvenience, but a necessary one. And I suppose it was just a very harsh reminder of why that's so important. And you do take that for granted. But what had happened was my blood got too thick. There was a clot that had formed, went to my brain, and I basically short-circuited. So that was that TIA, which is a trans-ischemic attack. Which I say is like a mini stroke. It's a stroke. Like, everyone says to me, don't play it down. It was a stroke. So I have the heart surgery. I've had a stroke. Later that year, I had the opposite incident where my blood was too thin, and whether it was through stress or training or whatever it was, I developed some ulcers in my lower intestine, and that then led to them bleeding, and basically got near to an incident where I nearly bled out internally. So there's very symptoms and ways you pick that up, what I won't get into on the chat. But I ended up being rushed to hospital. I woke up one morning feeling very lightheaded. I could barely walk. didn't know what was going on. I was like, I feel so faint, so dizzy. Something is just not right. Went to hospital. They said, listen, I've lost a lot of blood. They ended up putting about 7 pints of blood back into me. So, I mean, you have to look at your hemoglobin levels, and I think
Yeah.
it's going to be corrected, so don't hold me to it. But I think a typical human needs to be around 12 to 13, up to 14. And I was sitting at about 8. So I'd almost cut that in half. And they literally said, listen, you nearly bled to death internally. So again, just having these near-death experiences just changes your perspective on things, and it's crazy. And the irony is not lost on me, being in the health and fitness industry, to have these things
Exactly.
and to be plagued by various things. Most of them not by my own choice of
Yeah.
doing. I've always led a very healthy life. I mean, just to be clear, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, not once, or anything else for that matter. And really, like I say, don't really drink alcohol. So I've always been active. I've always done what I think is the right things. I mean, everyone has their cheats and their treats, and like a slab of chocolate once in a while, and biscuits is my kryptonite. But
Okay, so now
yeah,
we know.
that's the long and the short of it. I think there's been all these things. And after the bleed out incident, there was a couple of other gut complications that I just kept struggling with, and had like these flare up issues where effectively what happens, and it sounds pretty graphic, but like your digestive system is blocked, your lower intestine is blocked. So what happens is you can't pass food and that. And so what happens is it kind of reverses it and it sends it back up the other way, and you end up vomiting. And it sounds terrible, but I had about 3 or 4 of those incidents over a period of the year. After I had all these tests when I had the bleed out, like different colonoscopies, gastroscopies. There was a double balloon enteroscopy, which is where they actually put like a balloon type item down your esophagus all the way down as low as they can go. And then they inflate it and they take like a biopsy or a scraping of your lining of your intestines to check what it was. And one of the things they said was, listen, there's a risk of cancer, there's a risk of Crohn's disease, and they put it down to Crohn's disease. So to be honest, I was actually misdiagnosed for a year. And after that, basically got into a position where for a year I was still struggling with gut complications and these flare up incidents where you end up just vomiting profusely all night. All your food comes out, it feels horrendous. It's like worse than just nausea sort of feelings. And so after that, we really felt like we needed to get a second opinion. I was in the UK at the time, came out to South Africa for a work trip, and was away from my family, did all these tests. A 2-week work trip became a 6-week work trip, so I was away from my family for that long. And actually, on my 40th birthday, was given the news. I'd done the test. I was kind of expecting some sort of feedback, and just had a feeling this was what it was going to be.
Bit more
And
serious.
yeah, and the gastroenterologist called. He didn't know it was my birthday, obviously, so it's not his fault. But I just thought it was interesting. That was my birthday present on my
Away
40th
from the
birthday.
family and the birthday
Yeah,
present
so
is
I had to deliver that news to my wife over the phone, which
not
was
easy.
really difficult. And then obviously, we didn't share too much with my boys. I've got 2 boys who are now 7 turning 8, and the other one's just turned 12. Um, Obviously, they were 2 years younger at the time. So the older one, we explained in a little bit more detail, but the younger one, we just explained that Daddy had some tummy issues, and he's going to have to get it sorted. And we hoped that we wouldn't have to share what it was with him anyway until it was clear, which thank God it has been. So I feel very blessed and grateful to have had a clear diagnosis. I'm still on maintenance treatment. It's called immunotherapy, but it's a form of chemo basically, just a little bit more advanced. It's a lot more targeted. I've been very lucky to, I guess, being in the industry, we are having the right contacts and the right oncologists and doctors to speak to. Um, and yeah, I mean, as you know, part of the way I dealt with that was to double down on health and exercise, and not, it's not advice I would give to other people, because I think when it comes to cancer, as you know, it's very delicate, and you got to be careful what advice you give others. You can't just say, well, I was positive, I was optimistic, I had my down days, but the advice you give, you just got to be very careful with what you say, because you're dealing with a lot of hope and families who are listening to your words and your advice as someone who's gone through it. So I know that it's very different for everybody, whether you call it luck, whether you call it God or faith. All these things play a part. But I think the one thing we decided very early on was to be proactive, to be positive. The first thing we did, and I was joking that I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I said to my brother, after the news, after we had the tears and the kind of moments on the day, I said, let's open a bottle of champagne. And he was like, why? Like, the family's like, what are you doing? Your wife's not here. Like, why are we celebrating? I said, for me, the message I want to put out is we're celebrating the future overcoming of this. And that was the mindset we went into it. So not every day was perfect, but I decided from day one, there wasn't, what other alternative was there? Was you got to be like, don't think about the first thing you think is like, I'm dying. How long do I have left? That word just, provokes and evokes a lot of negative feelings and
Yeah.
concerns and fears. But I think I just, fortunately for me, and I can't say why or how that happened, I just got into this mode of fight, like let's fight this thing. And a lot of people say well done or congratulate you for the successful beating of it, for the lack of a better word. And I always felt like that's a weird thing to say, because like, what did I do more than someone else? And there are people out there that have probably fought harder and been more positive and taken even more drastic steps with like what they're eating and watching every single, like, I didn't go to that level. I just thought, okay, let's just be careful. Like, I was told certain things, like certain groups of meat, and there's a certain type. I think it's one of the amino acids, L-methionine or something like that. I must get the exact one, but one of them is actually something that helps you build muscle. And what happens is when you've got a growth like that, if you fuel it with that, much like muscles will grow, you'll also grow that. So we were looking at cutting out certain things, certain food groups, but I wasn't like extremely strict or
Yeah.
pedantic. It was just like, okay, let's just be careful with what we're doing now. But yeah, it's a weird thing for someone to say well done or congrats. I mean, they mean well, and I appreciate it certainly, but you don't feel like what did I do to deserve the win? You know what I mean? Like we were very blessed to get the right treatment, so I feel lucky and fortunate to have access to that. A lot of people don't have that sort of advance, and a lot of other people also just go through full on chemo, which also has other complications. So my journey, and not to play it down, has been relatively smooth under the circumstances, but there's obviously been moments that have been incredibly difficult, for me, for my wife, for my family, and I think actually more so for the people looking in that were close to me, because they like, it's scary, you like flip another thing, you thought like, okay, the heart surgery was the big medical thing. Most people don't have to endure more than that in their life, so there are obviously days where you're resentful, where you're bitter, where you're like, why me? Um, but I guess what you learn through it is that there's a pleasure and a reward of going through hard things, and I certainly don't wish these type of things on anybody. But there's that, and I think there's also, the ability to use exercise and your mind to at least better the way you approach these things. I'm not saying those are the only things, and that for someone else, training really hard or taking on a really difficult challenge might have made it worse. Granted, if you're at stage 4 or worse, like, I don't know if that's the right advice to be giving people. But in my case, at a stage 2 cancer, in the area that it was, being proactive, still running. There were days that I did, and I'm certainly not advocating for this, but there were days that I did a park run the day after treatment, and I didn't push it. I didn't. Sometimes I even walked, but I just wanted to be out there and feel like I'm still capable. My body's got this, and it was just the way that we approached it was be cautious and smart, but also don't stop. Like, keep trying to do the right things, and staying as positive as you can.
I think it's such an important thing that you talk about when faced with something like that. As you say, why again? Why the
Mm.
second time? Why the third time?
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
been 4.
and you keep going through it.
Yeah.
Family, obviously, massively important. You were living in the UK.
Mm.
You did move back to SA
Yeah.
after how many years were you there?
So we were there 2 different periods of time.
Yeah,
We lived there, for a little bit just before COVID, and then with COVID. I mean, listen, it wasn't a typical move that the business, not, I wouldn't say it doesn't support, but obviously it's not ideal being in a senior management position, going, almost leaving the team for a bit. So although we managed it, I know it wasn't necessarily what was welcomed or recommended. So I was very gracious and blessed to be able to have done that, and I appreciate our senior leadership and directors for allowing it. It's not something that's done often, but we had ambitions to see what could be done on that side, and for us it was actually more for personal reasons. We had a means to get residency there, but I didn't want to leave the group. Very passionate about the Biogen brand and the Discount business. I love what we stand for. I love the mission that they're on. The whole strength and positioning of better health starts here resonates with me in so many other
yeah,
ways more than anybody else, not
yeah,
just because of these stories, but just because I'm big on the whole purpose over profit. And yes, we're a commercial entity. Discim's listed on the JSE, but to have a meaning behind that, and like Roy Maresh, our CEO, said recently, you can do well while doing some good, and I think to be in a business that does both of those things, I think is really cool. And so for me, I think it's hard to leave Discim. It's hard to leave Biogen. I certainly didn't want to. I don't want to. I certainly see myself being here for a while, as long as they'll have me, and just feel very passionate about supporting the team and the directive and the message that they're on at the moment, and that is really helping South Africans restore, improve, and maintain their health and fitness as a secondary part of that. But yeah, we lived in the UK on and off 3 years, so a year for the first time, and just under 3 years, maybe 18 months the second time. The second time going back was, hey, can we still keep this residency? That was as simple as it was. Again, it was a much harder conversation to have moving a second time because we had done it and kind of felt like, listen, we need to come back. But we thought we'd give it a crack. And then with that news, it was kind of we were 50-50 in terms of, are we going to stay here? Do we need to come back? Work-wise, I was missing a lot of this. It's hard to be out the room. It's hard to, there's a contagious energy and a momentum that's here that you miss and kind of miss out on a few things not being in the room. So that was on the back of my mind. And my wife and I, Alison and I, had a discussion to say, like, it'd be so cool if we just had a reason or something that forced our hand one way or the other, either an ultimatum to be like, go find work there, as much as that would have devastated me, or a reason to come back. And there were plenty of reasons: family, work, community, people we know, just people you see on the street, all that. And then we got that news and we were like, okay, well, not quite the sign we were hoping for, but that was pretty clear. Like, if that's the big man's work upstairs, he was shouting.
The message was pretty clear.
Yeah, we came back, and we're not unhappy in South Africa. I didn't leave South Africa because we don't like it. If anything, to the contrary, we absolutely love this place. And having had the opportunity to live elsewhere, there really isn't a place like South Africa, with all our problems, with all our challenges, with all our diversities and history, and everybody's got their problems. And I'd rather be here fighting with our people, for the cause, for the mission, and doing what we can to make South Africa better. So glad to be back. Blessed to have had other opportunity. The UK is certainly a home away from home, but it's got nothing on South Africa.
I think it's a great point, and especially in the sporting circles and what we involved with on a daily and a weekly basis. There's not a day that goes by that we don't discuss sport or at events.
Yeah.
Events is a big part of the business. So obviously there's a lot of time away from family, never mind being in the UK when being here when they were in the UK.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time away from family for events, being activated, doing activations. I mean, I've known you long enough to know you used to be there putting up the activations. It's nice as you moved up the ladder.
I still do sometimes.
But I mean, Biogen and Discam, they're household name brands. We see them all the time. There's a massive sort of thing that you give back to the sports. So, and I say sports because you're involved in a number of different sporting disciplines. So, there's been a big focus on cycling. That's always been something that you guys have been very passionate about. I know there's a move to some running, and you're getting more involved in that. Just tell us a couple of things. I mean, obviously, Tunk was a big thing for you guys. Biogen, the Biogen 21 is obviously another event. So give us a spread of what the events are, what your involvement is, how it works, what the benefits are of you guys being there at those events. We've got comrades coming up just 10 days time or so. So you'll be known again for that, I'm sure.
100%. Listen, again, we're very lucky to be involved. A lot of people thank us for sponsorships. They thank us for being involved in events. They thank us for allowing events to take place. If it wasn't us, it would probably be someone else. So the way I genuinely feel about it is like, we're thankful for the opportunity to be there. Like, I'm not trying to sound all noble. Like, it honestly is a privilege to be in a place where you have a business that can help fund and support and raise other funding for events and causes, whether they're NPOs or whether they're events or commercial entities. Again, we're in a really privileged position to be able to enable sport and to advance it. We've sponsored a lot of athletes over the years on multiple fronts. For a time, there was quite a skew towards cycling, as you say, but running equally as so. Maybe we just haven't shouted about it as much. But I mean, before Biogen took over naming rights of the 21, it was the Discam 21 for 22 years, if I remember correctly. So Discam's been there before I was even there. And as a brand, I think that heritage and that history of them pushing health and wanting to support it and endorse it as a message has been there. I think the last 5 or 6 years, they've really just curated that message in the form of better health starts here. And I think it's always been there. So it's not been like, oh, suddenly Discam's pivoted. We inherently are a pharmacy group that medicinally and otherwise has supported people's health and wellness. And I think the business has just augmented that with the growth of supplements, of sports nutrition, of vitamins, of foods now, a massively growing category, and something that, again, diet forms the foundation of any health. So I'm digressing, but we've been passionately involved in sports, in multiple sports: rugby, cricket, soccer, running, cycling, mountain biking. A lot of passionate mountain bikers in the groups, and naturally we gravitate towards that, but equally so now running. I mean, our CEO is a phenomenal runner, much better than I am, faster than I am, more
I
competitive
can
than I
attest to
am. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
that.
We've all taken a beating at his hands or legs, and a few others as well. I mean,
Mm.
the senior sort of Discim Life team, the way that Discim has evolved in terms of augmenting its service and offering is so authentic to the mission, and that's what I love about it. It's not just it's not just sales pitch, it's not just marketing of okay, come to Discim because we do all these things. Like the team, I can tell you behind closed doors are passionately invested, not just financially but emotionally, in helping South Africans get fitter, get stronger, be better. And what a cool opportunity to be in. So yeah, invested and attached to so many different sporting entities. More recently now, Biogen's with Mamelodi Sundowns as well. We've been with the Stormers. Had Sharks Rugby for 9 years as well. And all these relationships have been part of the growth of the brand and the business. And again, aligning what I like is aligning with companies and sports teams and individuals that have a similar mission of echoing that message of health first.
Yeah.
I think the way Biogen as a brand has carved itself out is probably a slightly softer message. And what I mean by that is not in a pansy kind of way, but in like a we have a health first message. So yes, you've got to have the six pack abs and the muscles and the chest and the bars and all these sort of things and the beauties and like all the right things that everyone's chasing. But I think for us, like as long as you're healthy, we believe you'll perform better. And I think having a sports nutrition and a vitamins range has shaped that message. So the be your best philosophy is about being the best version of yourself, whether you're someone who's couch to 5K, as we call it in running terms, or someone who's at the most elite levels, the Connie Simbinis of the world, the Candice Lills of the world, and many others that we've been privileged to work alongside. Um, the message is the same. Is like, what is your level? What is your goal? How can we help you get there? How can we fine tune your health and wellness to be able to perform optimally? And not just in sport and fitness, but in daily life as a father, mother, friend, business person, business owner, employee, whatever, philanthropist, whatever you're doing in life. And you yourself have been, part of Chop Cows and many others for many years. And we love that sort of stuff. For me personally, outside of what I do for work, like to be able to contribute and to give back is there's nothing more rewarding than that.
I think it's an awesome philosophy the guys have. It's living the brand.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Mm.
I mean, I think it also helps with like you mentioned, Roy, having someone at the helm steering the ship. When it's somebody who is as passionate as he is, it only filters down.
Yeah.
So it's the positive stuff that you see from it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a rumor of a book going on.
Yeah, so it's not a rumor; it's happening, and the reason why I've had to put it out there because at first I was like a bit like not ashamed about it, but I was like very like you kind of one of those things like what if it doesn't come to pass? Like I don't want to say too much about it, and then I thought what had happened with me was that through all these medical turmoils, if you want to call them that, there was a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety that was developed through that. I really battled a lot with anxiety leading up to my heart surgery. And what you'd think would have been corrective is now cool. You don't have to worry anymore because it's fixed. There were new anxieties, there were new pains, there was new, you literally, your chest gets sawed through, your sternum gets sawed through. There's pictures of your heart, you've seen it. Like it's quite something. And although I'm blessed by that, I recognize that there were probably some undealt with traumas that came through that, because it was so positive and proactive and recovery and every day is better and better. Some of the trauma of it was probably lost on me. And I think that manifested through anxiety and even sometimes depression at times. And you think, why would that have come about if it's now fixed? I can't tell you. The mind is a funny thing. It's had to learn to trust itself again. The mind had to trust the body again. And I think through that, I got to a stage where it was quite debilitating. There were days where, if I'm honest, there were 1 or 2 days where I'd call in sick just because I couldn't face driving in the traffic going to work. I can't tell you why. Anxiety is not a logical thing. It's absolutely not a logical thing at all. It makes no sense, especially to someone looking in. They're
tangible.
like, what are you worried about? Like that's, it's an obvious thing. But what I got to without going too far down the road is that I realized I needed to just document my thoughts as a form of therapy. And I did see a clinical psychologist and all these type of things to try and overcome the anxiety, maybe never really got to the root of it. And I just felt like I need to use this for good. Like that was one of my coping mechanisms. Because when you're in it, and those who've dealt with severe anxiety will appreciate, you get quite desperate. You're like, what do I turn to? How many times, even seeing a psychologist or chatting to a friend or a parent or a sibling, it has its benefits, but it stops. And you still feel like you haven't solved it. And one of the things that I just got to the point was almost like end of my rope sort of thing was just like, okay, I have to try and use this for something. I can't go through this pain and this frustration and this embarrassment, for me anyway, um, and not use it for something. It has to have meaning. And I think that was the turning point for me. Was, I will say, running played a big part, not to digress back to exercise, but being active and monitoring my fitness and just getting out in the fresh air. I think taking step by step, methodically, and it was a very cathartic process for me. But I decided to write about the anxiety, not as a book originally. And then as I wrote more, I thought, well, maybe this can become a blog or a website or a something. And the more I fed it, and it's been on and off for 8 or 9 years, because I never, probably for the first 5 or 6 years, I never saw it as the potential to be a book. Um, but now I have some deadlines, and I thought that if I put it out in the universe and tell people on social media, hey, I'm writing a book, now I'm accountable. Now you're asking me questions about it. I can't not deliver on it. Where
Exactly.
before I had the safety net of,
Yeah.
well, I can just leave it to myself. It can just be a diary and I can just share it with a few people. But the principle behind it is, and I'll even give you a kind of sneak peek of, the chapter is going to be called The Hell Inside, or sorry, the book is going to be called The Hell Inside My Head. And that's not because I wanted like a hard hitting book cover thing. It was literally the most succinct way I could describe what I think anxiety is. It's a hell that takes place inside your head that you actually have a control over, and you have to learn to manage it. And without sounding ambitious, for me, it's a thing of teaching people what I went through and giving it from a perspective of someone who's gone through mental health issues, which we know is so prevalent. And it's not jumping on a bandwagon because that's a buzzword in the last 3 years, and that kind of has heightened since COVID and other things. Mental health is topical, and I think it's great that even something as traumatic as COVID and other experiences have highlighted the need to talk about it more. People are talking about it more, so that's already a win. But for me, it was something that started way before that. It was a pure intention of saying, I'm just using this to cope myself. And maybe someone else reading it might say, okay, I'm also going through that. And if that was kind of the premise of it. But I thought it would be useful. I'm not saying versions of this don't exist out there. Maybe I just haven't found them or looked hard enough. But when I was looking for help and resources, a lot of the stuff was quite scientific. It was written by a doctor, a professional, absolutely helpful. And to understand physiologically what your body's going through, your mind is going through, was useful. But I just felt like maybe this could come from a different angle. And literally, if there's one thing that I've written down, is that if someone could just take one line, one chapter, one piece from that book that just made the journey easier for them, didn't even cure their anxiety or help them necessarily, I would consider that a win. And I feel like that's the goal now. It's not about making money. I don't even think many publishers have said this. And if you're writing books to make money, unless you're J.K. Rowling or someone more well known, you don't do that. You don't get into it for writing money. So you need to know your why. And I suppose for me, I had the why before I had the even desire to write a book. But I thought, I'm going to publish this, like however that looks. If it's just me, there's a publisher I'm talking to, and they've given me advice, and I've been dealing with other writers and getting advice from people about how to do it. But the book will literally just be a resource for someone who's going through it to feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. Like if that's the feeling you get, and that was the one thing that helped you, for me, helping the anxiety and the mental health issues was having someone who was like the drill sergeant saying like, snap out of it, go train, do the right things. But only that is quite hard. And so you also need the empath. You need the person to say,
The
me
softer
too,
one.
I get it, don't worry, let's talk it out. To have, and to also only have the softer approach is also not good. You need the drill sergeant, as I call it, and I talk about that in the book, in the writing, is like you need both sides. You need a bit of tough love, but you also need a bit of empathy and sympathy and a little bit of, okay, let's do this together. And I think if that's the one thing we can give to people, is just to, and I think people are recognizing that, but to document some of the thoughts. The one chapter, I don't know if it'll land as the final name, but it's called The Cray Cray, and it's some of the crazy things you end up doing. Not stupid things, they're not reckless, but silly example. The one day I just had enough of this anxiety, and I just was screaming to myself in my car. And I remember looking sideways to the guy driving next to me, and he was like, and I'm in a branded car as well. And I was like, that's probably not the best advert for Biogen, but I'm being real. So I think that's the most you can ask of people, is to be real and authentic about it.
Yeah.
And if anything, I don't know how much it'll help people, but I do fundamentally believe that reading about someone else's experience through anxiety and even depression at times would be helpful. And I think that alone can be, if you don't have people in your life that are close to you that you can talk to, or if you're not someone that likes to talk, at least you can read it. Maybe that's a version of therapy. So let's see. When it comes out, we'll definitely shout about it. And I've changed my ambition from like, well, I don't mind what happens, to like, I'm hell bent. I want to sell minimum of 5,000 copies. not to make money, but to get that amount of content out there so that at least
Let people
5,000
know.
people, and hopefully more, that pass it on, because let's hope they read it and pass it on. I feel like that's a good start, and I don't think it's that many. Like, so like, I've become more ambitious with it. Like, it's no longer let's see, I don't mind, as long as I help one person. No, screw that. Like, I want to help a S ton of people,
Yeah.
and really make a difference, and hopefully build on that and write other versions of it. So yeah, watch this space.
And I think it's, like you said, there's the scientific side, there's the doctor side, psychologist side.
Mm.
There's the professional guys who deal with it, and the professional sports people that deal with it.
Yeah,
Celebrities that deal with it. When you hear things coming from them, it's almost like it's up there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't, it's not tangible for
yeah,
you and
yeah,
me, because it's like, well, we're not a part of that lifestyle.
yeah.
When you hear it from a normal everyday person,
Mm.
I think it becomes a hell of a lot more real,
Yeah,
and it becomes something that you can actually live and you can feel.
yeah,
So I think, without a doubt, I mean, we've spoken about it on a number of occasions, and I think you're definitely going to hit the
yeah,
5,000.
yeah,
Without a
yeah,
doubt, it's
yeah,
definitely going
yeah,
to be
yeah,
the case.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we look forward to reading it, without a doubt.
No,
I think it's going to be something exciting.
no, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
And it's, just to go back to here. I mean, you've been here. I've known you, I think, 17, 18 years. I've been involved with Discam for all of the years I've done the race. So it's been such a cool journey for us, or me individually, with the company and with everything that they do. But the long term goal for where we're going, where we're seeing everything. What's the long term goal with you? Any other big races coming up?
Yeah,
You haven't mentioned something which
little
was
event last
a
year.
little event which you put there, like your book. You wanted to do something, so
Yeah.
tell me
So,
about that.
so I did my first half Ironman last year. I've done a lot of running races. My favorite is the Two Oceans half. Like, there's obviously a lot of great races out there, but I think the scenery, the Gears, like, that was one that really was special to me. And I think one that was one of my, outside of the disc game half, like, was one of the first bigger races that I did. I've honestly never done beyond 21 Ks as a run. I've just always had this rule of, I always want to enjoy my sport, and especially with my background. It's not because I don't think I can do it, but this was the one time I thought I'd break that rule. If I'm honest, I wanted to. It was shortly, well, it was a few months after getting the cancer diagnosis, thinking about it, not deciding it then, because I thought, okay, that sounds stupid to now take on that while your body and your immune system is suppressed and you're fighting these things. But I set the goal of saying, well, what is possible? What am I capable of? And I've heard this before. A lot of people going through treatment and other trauma, taking on harder challenges. The human mind is weird. It just wants to do hard things. But I honestly felt like this would be a great chapter in the book. That was my thinking. If I'm brutally honest, I thought, well, I need to have an end success. I need to have a what now, to say that, yes, I manage anxiety a lot better. The last 5-6 years, it's been relatively clean sailing with when it comes to that. But we cover all topics, and I thought it would be great to have some sort of message to say, well, with the anxieties, and even doing a half Ironman, swimming out in the sea, and there's some anxiety that comes from just putting yourself in that position. It was a great achievement for me to say, like, hey, I'm capable, having gone through all this stuff. I did do it sensibly. I checked with all the doctors. None of them were thrilled about me doing it, but no one said, hell no, you definitely can't do this. So yeah, I did.
Doctors are one thing. So what did the wife say?
Well, yeah, listen, she was like, rolled her eyes.
That's the ruling party.
Yeah. I think she just said, like, just be careful, like, and I was very mindful of that. Like, never mind me about my own health. Like, they're the ones left behind watching. It was a very stressful day for them. I've put them through a lot, not intentionally, but they've been many times at home by themselves when I'm in hospital or whatever. And that wasn't my own doing, but it was there, and they felt that. And my kids have, I think, gone through it a little bit as well. So I think for them, I underestimated how scared they were of that day, of me, like, especially the older one. The younger was like, okay, daddy's doing a race, like, cool. The older one was very much like, can you do this? Or the doctor's okay, like, please just be careful. Like, and that was part of my fuel of, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it carefully. And even on the run, I had a bit of a meltdown at one point, like, mentally. I suddenly had like the shooting pain in my chest. And I'll talk about that in the book as well. But it was just so ironic that this old foe of mine, anxiety, had to make an appearance even on the event that I was doing to celebrate my overcoming of it. I was like, man, the irony. But I had a good friend of mine and colleague that did it with me, and we just walked a little bit. We talked it through. We ended up speaking quite a lot and had a really special event. So we weren't gunning for a particular time, and actually we're doing okay. I think at one stage when we started the run, we realized about 4 or 5 Ks in that we might be on track for 7 hours. And I thought, given everything I've been through, that'd be a good time. but we swore that we wouldn't talk about times. We said we won't focus on a time or a
Yeah.
result. We just want to finish. And as soon as we thought about it, I think it got into my head, and I was like, okay, well, now I have to keep a certain pace. And then suddenly, just unfortunately at that time, I really had a level of discomfort, and I got the shooting pain. And obviously, you always hear about shooting pains and arms, and your mind starts spiraling. I've done too much. What have I done? I never should have done this. And I thought, you know what, we're gonna push on. Like, I did start to look for medical help. I thought, okay, well, let me just check this out, just so I can put the anxiety at ease. And we couldn't actually find it, to be honest. Not to knock the organizers or anything, but for whatever reason, they were too far away. And we thought, okay, well, let's just keep walking. We'll find them at some point. And I think by the time we had walked it off and talked it through, the discomfort stayed, and I was still a bit concerned. But I don't think it was anything. I had it checked afterwards. I saw a doctor, checked it out, went to my GP, everything. I think it was just for the tension of sitting on the bike for that long. I hadn't done an event like that after the swim, plus all the swimming and the movement. So it was muscular, like it was nerve related, muscular related.
It's amazing what the mind does.
But in my head, I was dying. I'd done a stupid thing, and everyone's going to say, well, why did he do it? Obviously, you've had heart surgery, you've had cancer, you've had all these things. Like, what an idiot, you know, like. So I had to work through that, if I'm honest. But yeah, it was a very cathartic, like, I was a wreck finishing on that finish line, seeing my parents at the end. My wife couldn't be there, unfortunately, because she's a teacher and she had commitments, but my parents were there, and I probably bawled for about 15 minutes just straight, just like everything, like not just finishing the race, the day, the effort, the yards putting into it, the setbacks.
Everything coming from.
Yeah, and I think that was, it made me
surgery.
feel like this is going to be a good chapter, you know, and that's honestly, look, I'm just being honest. Like, I didn't do it because I wanted to be a superhero. I didn't want to do it. Obviously, it's cool to have the medal, and I joked with the guys that I'm going to wear that medal for like a week afterwards, which I did. But yeah, we were right about it, and I'd love to share that experience with people. Not to say that people must do that to show that they've overcome anxiety or medical issues.
There's other ways.
That was my way, and in many ways, it helped me cope with the cancer treatment. But I don't think we should do it ongoing. So, yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, it's the solid. So,
Okay,
yeah.
dude. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
From our side, just from one athlete side, thank you. For me personally, thank you for your story.
Yeah.
Look forward to the book as soon as you got it going.
Yeah.
And then look out for the interview in this next issue of Modern Athlete, and we'll have the interview on YouTube so that you can download it.
Cool. Thanks, Rich. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Special,
Yeah.